Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India News Hour, India's voice to the world. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. Coming up in the next hour, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presents 2024 budget, accords priority to the poor, women, youths and farmers. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi hails the budget, says it is not merely an interim budget, but an inclusive and innovative budget as well. And the European Union summit agrees to extend 50 billion euros in new aid to Ukraine, overcoming Hungary's objections. All right, first up, all the news on the interim budget 2024. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman presented the interim budget on Thursday. She said that the government is focused on an all-round, all-pervasive and all-inclusive development. The minister said the government is also focusing on the poor, women, youths and farmers. The income tax slabs remain unchanged, while the fiscal deficit for financial year 24-25 is pegged at 5.1% of the GDP. The government is also committed to making the country a developed one by the year 2047. The government aims to transform India into a developed country by 2047. India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman reiterated that the vision for a developed India will be in harmony with nature and modern infrastructure. Take a look at this report.
During the interim budget speech, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman reiterated the ironclad commitment of the NDA government to make India a developed nation by 2047. She added that the vision for a developed India will be in harmony with nature and with modern infrastructure.
The next 5 years will be years of unprecedented development and golden moments to realize the dream of developed India by 2047. The trinity of demography, democracy and diversity backed by Sabka Prayas has the potential to fulfill aspirations of every Indian.
She added that in the full budget in July, a detailed roadmap for Viksit Bharat will be presented.
Every challenge of the pre-2014 era was overcome through our economic management and our governance. These have placed the country on a resolute path of sustained high growth. This has been possible through right policies, true intentions, and appropriate decisions. In the full budget in July, Honorable Speaker, our government will present a detailed roadmap for our pursuit of Viksit Bharat.
Further, the FM stressed that the government's focus on pursuing economic reforms will remain unwavering. She added that the government will take up the next generation reforms and work on its effective implementation.
Our government will adopt economic policies that foster and sustain growth, facilitate inclusive and sustainable development, improve productivity, create opportunities for all, help them enhance their capabilities, and contribute to generation of resources to power investments and fulfill aspirations.
The Finance Minister listed steps to tackle many other challenges to ensure India remains on the path of becoming a developed nation.
The government will form a high-powered committee for an extensive consideration of the challenges arising from fast population growth and demographic changes.
The Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman listed steps taken to sustain the unprecedented infrastructure push and meet green energy demands, announcing an 11.1% hike in capital expenditure outlay. Bureau Report, DD India.
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman also stressed on Indian government's focus on inclusive development. She emphasized on the development of infrastructure facilities such as railways, aviation and much more. Take a look at the next report.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman laid stress on Indian government's continued focus on ensuring all-round, all-pervasive and all-inclusive development. She added that the government's focus is on 4 major castes: poor, women, youth and farmer. She laid out government's plan to uplift each of them in detail in her budget speech. Another highlight of the budget speech was continued emphasis on improving the infrastructure facilities in the nation. The capital expenditure outlay has been further increased by 11.1% to reach a whopping figure of more than 11 lakh crore.
Building on the massive tripling of the capital expenditure outlay in the past 4 years, resulting in huge multiplier impact on economic growth and employment creation, the outlay for the next year is being increased by 11.1% to 11,111 crore rupees. This would be 3.4% of our GDP.
Government is also ensuring that railways, aviation and urban transport sectors get the deserved importance.
3 major economic railway corridor programs will be implemented. These are energy, mineral and cement corridor, number 2, port connectivity corridors, and number 3, high traffic density corridors.
The Finance Minister also said that the centre will bring out a white paper on the state of the economy till 2014 and learn lessons from the mismanagement of those years.
The crisis of those years has been overcome and the economy has been put firmly on a high sustainable growth path with all-round development. It is now appropriate to look at where we were then. I repeat, it is now appropriate to look at where we were then till 2014 and where we are now, only for the purpose of drawing lessons from the mismanagement of those years. The government will lay a white paper on table of the House.
The Finance Minister also promised that the full budget in July will witness the detailed document for realizing the potential and ensuring a developed India by 2047. Bureau Report, DD India.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman also said the Narendra Modi-led government is working towards making India a Viksit or developed India by 2047, adding the trinity of democracy, demography and diversity, supported by the vision of Sabka Prayas, and the potential to fulfill the aspirations of every Indian man and woman.
A vote of accountability. In a budget speech that contextualized India's economic management in a global order, the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman spoke of a vision of the Amrit Kal, and India as a developed country by 2047. She said the country had shown the way during turbulent economic times as a consensus builder to find solutions to global problems.
The recently announced India-Middle East-Europe economic corridor is a strategic and economic game changer for India and others. In the words of Honorable Prime Minister, the corridor, and I quote, will become the basis of world trade for hundreds of years to come, and history will remember that this corridor was initiated on Indian soil.
India is moving forward towards a Viksit Bharat, or a developed India. Much of that vision sees a transition to green energy. The Budget 2024 makes significant announcements towards green transition. 10 million households will get up to 300 units of free electricity every month through the adoption of rooftop solarization. This is in keeping with Prime Minister Narendra Modi's resolve made at the time of the Ram Temple consecration.
Through rooftop solarization, 1 crore households will be enabled to obtain up to 300 units free electricity every month. This scheme follows the resolve of Honorable Prime Minister on the historic day of consecration of Sri Ram Mandir in Ayodhya. Savings up to 15 to 18,000 rupees annually for households from free solar electricity and selling the surplus to the distribution companies. Charging of electric vehicles. Entrepreneurship opportunities for a large number of vendors for supply and installation. Employment opportunities for the youth with technical skills in manufacturing, installation, and maintenance.
The government is also providing viability gap funding for offshore wind energy projects. E-vehicle ecosystem will get a boost through greater government support for manufacturing and adoption of e-vehicles in public transport. The FDI inflow between 2014 and 2023 has been doubled compared to the period 2004 to 2013. The government has also been aiming to maximize the multiplier effect of capital expenditure and has increased it by a numerical aesthetical 11.1% to 11,11,111 crore rupees.
Building on the massive tripling of the capital expenditure outlay in the past 4 years, resulting in huge multiplier impact on economic growth and employment creation, the outlay for the next year is being increased by 11.1% to 11,11,111 crore rupees. This would be 3.4% of our GDP.
Finance Minister Nirmala Seetharaman committed to reducing the fiscal deficit to 5.1% in the current budget and to reduce it further to below 4.5% by 2025-26, a clear path of fiscal consolidation. She committed the interim budget to the House with a reference to the economy being firmly placed on a high sustainable growth path. Bureau Report, DD India.
And joining me are two of my colleagues. Joining me at the moment from New Delhi is my colleague Akshay Dongre, and from Bengaluru, Aisha Khanam. Aisha, if I may come to you first, how are Bengaluru and Karnataka reacting to the budget?
Well, Ramesh, people in Bangalore, especially people in Karnataka, are overjoyed and jubilant about this budget because, first of all, it does not burden them with anything over the tax structure. But when we spoke to the industry reacted to this in a very positive manner and said that this budget lays the foundation for a developed India. This budget, wherein there is a more emphasis on technology, there is more emphasis on innovation and research. This is what that matters to a city like Bangalore, because in Bangalore is the hub. Bangalore is the capital of IT, and it is a Silicon Valley of India. So for Bangalore, this matters most. And this is where the people of Bangalore believe that, Prime Minister has put forth his vision of a technology-driven India, a technology-driven future, Viksit Bharat. And this will lead to not only development, not only transforming India through a digital transformation, but also creating the next generation of leaders. So this is what matters to the people of Bangalore, because when we were to talk about the budget, which gives a corpus fund for innovative research, R&D in science and technologies, that means this will be more focused on startups. This will be more focused on space sector, aviation sector. So for Bangalore, this being the Silicon Valley of India, this is one of the important aspects that the industry believes, that this budget is a foundation for a sustainable growth. And with this budget, the Prime Minister has not only given his vision of India, of a developed India by 2047, but also developing India as a strong and powerful global voice for global South. And this is this is exactly the vision of the Prime Minister of India. So this budget not only lays emphasis on youth and technology and science, but also overall women in every sector have been prioritized. And be it the Lakpati Didi or prioritizing women's health, this budget has taken care of all the four structures, four pillars of development that Prime Minister talks about to make India a developed nation as per his vision and take it forward as a world leader and emerging as a voice of the global South.
All right, shifting focus from Bengaluru now to New Delhi, where my colleague Akshay Dongre is standing by. Akshay, in your view, what did the budget have to say about strategic sectors such as defense in particular?
Well, Ramesh, if we look at the budget in terms of what it gives to the defense sector, that perhaps is one of the biggest recipient of the funds that are allocated in every year through the budget. This year, again, following the trend of the previous budgets, the government has in fact increased the budgetary allocation to the defense sector. Now, it becomes important given the fact that the Indian Army, the Indian Navy, as well as the Indian Air Force, along with the other defense forces, are going through a massive transformation. They're going through a reform. They're modernizing. The structure of the armed forces in toto is also being changed. We have seen that how the government is also focusing on startups, on private sector production of defense equipments. We have seen recently that not just smaller equipments have been developed by the private sector, but technologies such as drones have also been are being produced or rather manufactured by private sector along with the public sector, and there is a partnership that is taking place, and that is what exactly the defense expert also wanted to say as far as the expectations are concerned. They had hoped for an increase in the budgetary allocation. At the same time, they had expected a budget that focuses on reforms along with the modernization of the armed forces through a public and private sector cooperation. Now, the second part that the finance minister also spoke about was the deep technology, the deep tech that she mentioned as far as bringing out a new scheme is concerned for the defense forces. Now, if we look at what exactly this deep tech means, it means that the startups or the firms that are deeply involved in sophisticated technology, and especially in defense sector, when we are dealing with state-of-the-art technologies, then any kind of innovation can be a big boost as far as the modernization drive is concerned. And perhaps that is this budget, though it was an interim budget, it was to set a stage for a proper modernization drive that the government of India expects to launch very soon.
All right, Akshay Dongre in New Delhi and Aisha Khanam in Bengaluru. Thank you for your inputs. Appreciate it. And in more interim budget 2024 news, Prime Minister Narendra Modi of India hailed the budget presented today as not merely an interim budget, but an inclusive and innovative budget as well. Prime Minister Modi asserted that this budget carries the confidence of continuity. He said this budget has a reflection of the young aspirations of a young India.
ये बजट विकसित भारत के 4 स्तंभ युवा, गरीब, महिला और किसान सभी को एम्पावर करेगा। निर्मला जी का ये बजट देश के भविष्य के निर्माण का बजट है। इस बजट में 2047 के विकसित भारत की नींव को मजबूत करने की गारंटी है।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said this budget carries the confidence of continuity. He also said that the income tax remission scheme will benefit the middle class.
इनकम टैक्स रेमिशन स्कीम की घोषणा की गई है। उससे मध्यम वर्ग के करीब 1 करोड़ लोगों को बड़ी राहत मिलेगी। पिछली सरकारों ने सामान्य मानवी के सिर पर दशकों से ये बहुत बड़ी तलवार लटका कर रखी थी। आज इस बजट में किसानों के लिए भी बहुत महत्वपूर्ण और बड़े निर्णय लिए गए। नैनो डीएपी का उपयोग हो, पशुओं के लिए नई योजना हो, पीएम मत्स्य संपदा योजना का विस्तार हो और आत्मनिर्भर ऑयल सीड अभियान हो। इससे किसानों की आय बढ़ेगी और खर्च कम होगा।
Prime Minister Modi also said that the interim budget has emphasized on empowering the poor and middle class.
गरीबों के लिए हमने गांवों और शहरों में 4 करोड़ से अधिक घर बनाए। अब हमने 2 करोड़ और नए घर बनाने का लक्ष्य रखा है। हमने 2 करोड़ महिलाओं को लखपति दीदी बनाने का लक्ष्य रखा था। अब इस लक्ष्य को बढ़ाकर 3 करोड़ लखपति दीदी बनाने का कर दिया गया है। आयुष्मान भारत योजना ने गरीबों की बहुत मदद की है। अब आंगनवाड़ी और आशा वर्कर, उन सबको इस योजना का लाभ मिलेगा। साथियों, इस बजट में गरीब और मध्यम वर्ग को एम्पावर करने, उनके लिए आय के नए अवसर बनाने पर भी बहुत जोर दिया गया है।
India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman held a post-budget press conference at the National Media Centre in India's capital, New Delhi. Addressing the media, Finance Minister said the government has got the trust, confidence and blessings of people based on its exemplary track record of GDP, that is governance, development and performance.
The budget deficit, fiscal deficit, 5.8%, which is much lower than the 5.9 which was at the BE. Similarly, for the 24-25 budget, we've given 5.1 as the fiscal deficit, so clearly indicating that we are on track to meet the glide path which was set in 2021-22, and that we are well on track to meet the 4.5% fiscal deficit, on or below 4.5 even by FY26.
On the India-West Asia-Europe Economic Corridor, Indian Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that this is a project which has long-term implications for the entire region, extending all the way to Europe.
Making sure that the eastern region, and when I say eastern region, I'm not talking about Northeast. Northeast will get the attention that they've been getting all the while. They will still continue to get it, and they will be on the top of our priority. But when I say the eastern region, I'm talking about Bihar, Jharkhand, Chhattisgarh and Orissa, making sure that they'll become the engines of growth for the new Amritkal India that we are trying to use as a bridge towards leading to Vikasit Bharat 2047. And Eastern India, I've missed out on West Bengal, please add it, Bihar, Jharkhand, Orissa, Chhattisgarh and West Bengal. Next generation reforms will be carried on, building consensus with states and stakeholders for reform, perform, transform.
All right, let me now get you all the reactions that are pouring in. India's Defence Minister Rajnath Singh congratulated Minister Sitharaman for presenting a very encouraging interim budget. He said this budget will guide the country to become a developed nation by the year 2047.
वित्त मंत्री श्रीमती निर्मला सीतारमण जी ने आज जो इंटरिम बजट पेश किया, ये फुल फ्लेज बजट नहीं है, इंटरिम बजट है, लेकिन इंटरिम बजट जो भी उन्होंने प्रस्तुत किया है वो बहुत ही इंकरेजिंग है, बहुत ही उत्साहवर्धक है और आगे के लिए भी और अधिक आशाएं बढ़ती हैं। और भारत की इकॉनमी की साइज जितनी इस समय है, इसमें पूरी तरह से मैं आश्वस्त हूं इस इंटरिम बजट के कारण ही, जो भी इंडिकेशन इस बजट से मिले हैं कि हमारी इकॉनमी जो आज दुनिया की टाइप 5 कंट्रीज में है, उसकी साइज बढ़कर 2027 तक मोर देन $5 ट्रिलियन जाएगी और 2030 आते आते मोर देन $7 ट्रिलियन तक पहुंचेगी.
Welcoming the interim budget, India's Transport Minister Nitin Gadkari said this budget is aimed to strengthen India's economic sector in line with Prime Minister Modi's resolve to make India the third largest economy in the world.
दुनिया में भारत को तीसरी अर्थव्यवस्था बनाने का जो संकल्प प्रधानमंत्री जी ने किया है, उसी के अनुसार वित्त मंत्री जी का ये बजट हिंदुस्तान की आर्थिक क्षेत्र को मजबूत करने वाला है, एक्सपोर्ट को बढ़ाने वाला है, उद्योग व्यवसाय की तरक्की करने वाला है और रोजगार नए क्रिएट करने वाला है. मुझे विश्वास है कि इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को अब जब से ज़्यादा प्रायोरिटी मिली है. हमारा भी बजट काफ़ी बड़ा है और निश्चित रूप से आने वाले समय में हमारे देश का रेलवे का, हवाई जहाज, एयरपोर्ट्स, रोड और पावर, ये जो इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर के चारों क्षेत्र हैं, हम वर्ल्ड स्टैंडर्ड के बनेंगे, ऐसा मुझे विश्वास है.
India's Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia called the interim budget a medium to transform India into a self-empowered nation. The minister highlighted the various government measures that will raise the Indian economy as well.
The budget is a statement of the Prime Minister's personal resolve to transform Bharat into a Vishwaguru, to transform Bharat into an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Today, India has emerged on the world stage. We were the 10th largest economy, we are today the 5th largest economy. By 2027, we will be the world's 3rd largest economy. And that empowerment of the Prime Minister through his schemes, which looks at development not at the village level, but looks at development, as the Finance Minister said, at the individual level.
India's Minister of State for Electronics and Information Technology, Rajiv Chandrasekhar, appreciated Minister Sitharaman for presenting an interim budget that summarized the qualitative and quantitative transformation of the Indian economy in the last decade.
Our Honorable Finance Minister has done an excellent job in summarizing what has happened and how India has transformed in the last 10 years. India is on a launch pad to become a developed nation in our lifetime. So this has been an excellent summary, the interim budget, of what the qualitative and quantitative transformation of the Indian economy has gone through in the last 10 years.
Another Minister of State, General V.K. Singh, called the interim budget development-oriented.
It's a budget which is development-oriented for the future, because we are all moving now towards a time when we want India to be developed by 2047. So it's a budget which builds on the strengths of today and gives direction for macroeconomics have been improved in the last 10 years. There has been a great amount of push on infrastructure. There has been a great amount of push on capex-oriented budgets in the last couple of years.
India's Education Minister Dharmendra Pradhan welcomed the interim budget presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, calling it a stepping stone towards a developed India.
आने वाले दिनों में जब हम विकसित भारत की ओर बढ़ रहे हैं, ये बजट उसके लिए एक बहुत बड़ा स्टेपिंग स्टोन है. प्रधानमंत्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने जय अनुसंधान की बात कही थी, सिर्फ कहे नहीं, उसको क्रियान्वयन करने के लिए आज बजट में 1 लाख करोड़ रुपया की एक कॉर्पस फंड की अनाउंस किया गया.
For his part, Minister Kiren Rijiju thanked Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman and Prime Minister Modi for the interim budget presented this morning. He said that India has become a confident country in terms of its economy today.
इतना बढ़िया बजट जो एक दिशा देता है, अगले बार जब रेगुलर बजट पेश करेंगे, उस बीच का जो फासला है उसको पूरा करके साथ साथ पूरा 2047 तक विकसित भारत का नींव कैसे रखना है, इतना सुंदर से रखा, कोई सेक्टर छूटा नहीं है.
Jagat Prakash Nadda, the national president of the ruling Bharatiya Janata Party, termed the interim budget as far-sighted. He said it lays the foundation of a developed India.
यह बजट विकसित भारत के लक्ष्य की बुनियाद है। हम गरीबी हटाने का नारा नहीं देते, बल्कि गरीबी दूर करके दिखाते हैं। हम विकसित और विकास की केवल बात नहीं करते, बल्कि विकास को घर घर पहुंचाने में यकीन रखते हैं। अंतरिम बजट में मध्यम वर्ग के लिए आवास योजना लाए जाने का निर्णय एक क्रांतिकारी कदम है। अगले 5 साल में प्रधानमंत्री आवास योजना ग्रामीण के तहत लगभग 2 करोड़ घर बनाने का निर्णय लिया गया है।
Devendra Fadnavis, the Deputy Chief Minister of the Western Indian state of Maharashtra, said the interim budget has several schemes for the poor and middle class.
अर्थ मंत्री निर्मला सीतारमण जी ने जो अंतरिम बजट पेश किया है, विकसित भारत की संकल्पना विशद करने वाला इस प्रकार का ये बजट है। इस बजट में विशेष रूप से गरीबों मध्यम वर्गीयों के लिए कई योजनाएं उन्होंने रखी है, जिसमें 1 करोड़ सोलर रूफटॉप, जिसके माध्यम से 300 यूनिट तक की बिजली ये हमारे नागरिकों को मुफ्त मिलने वाली है। जो लोग झोपड़पट्टी में रहते हैं या चौल में रहते हैं, ऐसे लोगों को उनका घर खरीदने का या नया घर लेने का सपना पूरा हो, इसके लिए भी योजना लाई जा रही है।
A former CEO of Niti Aayog, Amitabh Kant, said the interim budget is reflective of the confidence of the government that will come into the long-term budget.
I think the budget is very reflective of inclusive growth. It's reflective of the confidence of the government that will come in to do a long-term budget, because it believes in macroeconomic fundamentals. It believes in bringing in financial discipline. It believes in no populism. It believes in ensuring capex expenditure. It believes in putting the priorities of the country first and foremost.
K.V. Subramanian, the Executive Director of the International Monetary Fund and former Chief Economic Advisor to the Government of India, called the interim budget judicious and visionary.
On tourism and on the 75,000 crore for states, interest-free loans, I think that is good news. So overall, that's basically how I would assess it. Judicious on the fiscal front, non-populist because it's more of the same, and visionary because many of the steps on innovation and on capex, etc.
Vinod Sharma, who heads the National Committee of Information Technology and Electronics at the Confederation of Indian Industry, said announcements regarding solar rooftop and electric vehicle made him feel enthusiastic about future prospects in India.
We are on to a responsible yet inspiring, next 5 years. In terms, obviously, we were not expecting any changes in taxes. For our own industry in electronics, there was some tweaking on some rationalization of customs duty, but that was already announced yesterday. For my industry, I would say that what enthuses me, and I'm sure my members, is the announcements regarding rooftop solar, the announcements regarding electric vehicles, and what the improvements that we want to do in agricultural productivity.
The Federation of Indian Chambers of Commerce and Industry welcomed the interim budget presented by Finance Minister Nirmala Seetharaman as strong, confident and a deep dive into the state of affairs of the Indian economy.
We've just witnessed the interim budget which was presented by the Honourable Finance Minister. I think it was a very strong, confident deep dive into the state of affairs of the Indian economy and all that the government has done in the last decade or so. What stood out for me was the clear articulation that the focus groups on which the government is working on for upliftment and development are the poor, the women, the youth and the farmers. There is a clear emphasis on green growth and inclusive growth. In as much as green growth is concerned, initiatives such as the viability gap funding for offshore wind, as well as a focus on the EV ecosystem, I think stood out.
And still to come on DD India News Hour. The US says a drone deal with India will boost bilateral military ties. And Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls for a closure of the UN Palestinian Refugee Agency.
Pills like candy for every sniffle and cough. Is excessive use of antibiotics creating superbugs? And does this mean that antibiotics will no longer be effective? I connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
Special housing loan scheme for women. Rate of interest at 8.35%. Zero processing charges, no prepayment charges. Takeover of loans at zero cost. Now is the right time to be a woman home buyer.
Why is the world preparing for a second Trump presidency? I connect the dots to get you the full picture. Watch Connecting the Dots every Friday at 8 p.m. IST on DD India.
You're watching DD India News Hour. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. The Indian industry leaders expressed their happiness over the interim budget presented this morning. DD India's Dibyendu Mondal spoke to Naina Lal Kidwai to get her reaction to the budget. Take a listen.
And I'm joined by Naina Lal Kidwai. Welcome to Doordarshan, ma'am. Your first reaction on the interim budget?
Well, first and foremost, it was really good to hear the Finance Minister put forward what was the report card of what has been achieved. And we were expecting that, but sometimes you hear it all together, and it is an impressive story. I think many of us were taken aback by the fiscal deficit numbers, the commitment next year of going at 5.3, and there was a fear that while 5.3 was quite achievable, that given that it's an election year, are there going to be handouts, subsidies, etc.? And we actually don't adhere to the 5.3. But what indeed the Finance Minister has announced is 5.1. So actually taking the fiscal deficit further in hand, which must come from the government's comfort on tax buoyancy, revenue collection, growth. So they obviously have great insights on that. Focus on poor, women, youth, farmers. And we see mention, of course, of women, which is always a very exciting one. A good report card already by the government in terms of movements, in terms of representation in Parliament, etc., which she did mention.
And also the government's focus on green, the green sector, green energy sector. If you could briefly talk about that.
So green energy is a very big one. India's big success story in solar. This interim budget has a program now, a commitment for 1 gigawatt of wind. So wind is coming back into importance. And biomass saw frequent mention. We have to see what those programs look like. EVs, e-buses, and e-charging stations saw mention. So again, the focus on ensuring e-mobility in a way that is green was obviously also very much on this government's mind.
Thank you so much for speaking to Doordarshan, ma'am. This is Dibyendu Mondal with camera person Naveen from New Delhi for DD India.
Reacting to the budget, the CEO of the National Stock Exchange of India, Ashish Chauhan, said India's tech-savvy youth will play a role in boosting the country's economy. Listening to this exclusive conversation he had with DD India's Shyama Mishra in Mumbai.
We were expecting that the budget would be on the expected lines, not expecting any much, no major policy changes, and that is what has happened. This is also one of the shortest budget announcements that we've ever seen. To talk more on this, we have Ashish Chauhan with us. Sir, we did see that no major announcements happened over here, also because this is the election year. What do you see the major takeaways and overall reaction on this year's budget?
Overall, I think it's telling you that the government or the Honorable Finance Minister talked about last 10 years, accounts and the achievements rather than last 1 year. But if you look at last 1 year itself, there have been tremendous achievements, and in some ways they got lost in the 10 years achievements related activities. They want to have growth, for which they are putting a lot of capex, and the capex has gone up from 10 lakh crore to above 11 lakh crore. It's 28-year high as a percentage of expenditure.
India aims to become a developed nation, and we are also moving towards Atmanirbharta. So by the time we become Atmanirbhar completely, my question is a tricky one. What do you expect from the actual budget that will happen now in July?
In 2047, as Honorable Prime Minister has given the vision of becoming a Viksit Bharat, that's what Honorable Finance Minister mentioned many times in her speech. And it is possible to become rich before we become old. See, each society gets old over a period. You have seen Japan getting old probably 20 years back. Europe has become old. China has suddenly become old because of one-child policy, and they have stuck in the middle income zone. Because of the way the technology is progressing, we have a chance over next 23 to 25 years to become rich before we become old. And that's basically the hope of every right-thinking Indian. And it is achievable because we have a young population which is technology savvy. And if we are able to provide the infrastructure and environment for them to go out and service the entire world, whether by way of production of goods, but also providing services. That's where the PLI and other schemes, although it was not mentioned, we have been pretty much the services capital of the world. And there has been huge buoyancy in the services exports.
All right, thank you very much, sir.
Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced key infrastructure allocations in her budget presentation pertaining to expansion of existing airports and railway corridors, which, according to real estate experts, will boost increased real estate. The budget also laid emphasis on innovation with a corpus fund announced. Bengaluru, as the hub of startups and innovation and research, welcomed the budget and said it boosts youth to emerge as entrepreneurs and job creators. DD India spoke to a cross-section of people in Bengaluru.
The overall budget, it's a good budget. They have encouraged the solar for every household. That is 1 crore houses will be given the solar, and they will be buybacking the particular excess power back to them. And the other one, the infrastructure. They've given the infrastructure development. It may be railways, it may be air, or it may be port connectivity also. All these three they've done an excellent move, which is required for major for the exports or the imports which need to the country.
True to the 4 priority sectors that the finance minister initially started off the budget speech. One is the poor, one is women upliftment. Next is, of course, the youth of the nation, and then, of course, the backbone, that the farmers. So when you focus on these priority sectors, clubbed with the governance focus and the progressive outlook in terms of policy making, you will always expect a growth-oriented budget. This has been the, the strategy of the current government all through.
When the finance minister started, in fact, her Viksit Bharat inclusive thought of including women, yuva, the poor and the farmers, it was, yes, there's something to look forward to. And focusing on defense, and at present the defense requirements are pretty high. So this brings in a lot of innovation among the youth and especially the startup entrepreneurs. So that's a great opportunity for across all startups, and Bangalore being the hub for startups, I think there is a great opportunity ahead, and it kind of sets the tone to say, yes, there are things and there are definitely greater things to come as we go along.
Presenting the interim budget 2024, India's Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said that the government will provide free vaccines for cervical cancer for girls aged between 9 and 14 years. According to the World Health Organization, cervical cancer is the 4th most common cancer in women. It is a major cause of cancer mortality in women too. Healthcare experts have welcomed Indian government's move to vaccinate young girls against this disease.
The first and foremost initiative, which can be a boon for all teenage girls, especially between 9 and 14, is our comprehensive cervical cancer vaccination program, which the government has taken very seriously. Due to the prohibitory cost of the vaccine, the common man could not afford these vaccines.
Dr. Archana Dhawan Bajaj, a gynecologist, hailed the announcement of vaccination against cervical cancer. Take a listen.
The interim union budget presented today has some very progressive moves. I think the vaccination drive for cervical cancer for children between the age of 9 to 13, free of cost, is a very, very welcome move. India provides the world's 1/4 load of cervical cancer, and cervical cancer continues to be the cause of one of the largest causes of both morbidity and mortality in women in our country. Vaccinating young girls, especially between the age of 9 to 13, gives an opportunity not only to vaccinate them against cervical cancer, but also gives an opportunity to have a healthcare provider child contact, wherein several issues like sexual health, menstrual health, contraception can be discussed, and it looks like a very, very progressive move on the part of our Finance Minister.
The 2024 budget has extended the tax benefit to these startups in the country by another year, and the community has expressed its happiness over this. DD India correspondent spoke to Vaibhav Kaushik, the founder of Navgati startup. Take a listen.
I'm joined by Vaibhav, who is founder of Navgati. Welcome to Doordarshan. The government has been giving a major push towards the startup culture in India. You come from a company that was set up just about two and a half years back. In fact, operations were begun two and a half years back. So how do you look at the entire startup culture in India and the government's push towards a startup?
So, Government of India has been supporting startups very, very aggressively for the last, few years. And I feel very fortunate to be a part of the startup ecosystem at this very opportune time. So Navgati was started in 2019, and we've been operational for the last 2.5, 3 years. And the steps taken by the government, including the Startup India, Ministry of Electronics and IT, and Department of Science and Technology, have been very, very helpful and instrumental in Navgati's growth so far.
And when we talk about this year's budget, how do you look at the SOPs that are given to the startup sector? As I mentioned earlier about extending the SOPs that were given, which were about to expire in March, but given an extension of a year. How do you look at that particular factor, and also how do you think this could boost more startups?
So, extending the tax benefit by another year have been an excellent, move by the government, because it helps sort of encourage more people to start companies that are highly profitable, because they can definitely get the tax benefits for 3 years in the first 10 years of their incorporation. So extending it by 1 year is an excellent decision by the government, and we really support it.
The interim budget of India also increased the capex outlay by 11% and spoke about housing for all, and the real estate sector is confident of further developments in this sector. DD India correspondent spoke with Siddharth Bansal to find out more.
Siddharth, talking about the government's impetus, what kind of SOPs or impetus are you looking at from the government side? I mean, of course, the fine print of the budget document is yet. I'm sure you're yet to go through it. And but what kind of impetus are you looking at?
I think the government obviously will give the details later, but the indication they have given is that there might be an interest subvention for affordable housing, which was there in the past. The government will continue in the future as well. And there could be some more SOPs for, say, green housing. And I think the details either will come in the full budget or in the time between now and the full budget.
Well, you've spoken about green housing, but this also brings me to ask you about the government's announcement on rooftop solar paneling in every houses. The government has earmarked 1 crore houses. Right. How do you look at that announcement?
I think that's a very good initiative, because up to 300 units of free power can be generated by the people having their own solar on the rooftops. So that will save a lot of money for people, and they can actually sell the extra power to the grid. So that can be transformational in the green energy transition for India.
Well, and of course, the government's focus has been on the green energy sector. But also my last question to you, Siddharth, would be on the infrastructure development. The government has increased the capex from 10 lakh, in fact, to 11.11 lakh crore. So, and it is an increase by 11% from last year. How do you look at that?
That's actually a huge increase. In fact, we should take that increase on the back of an already large increase. 4 years back, it was just 3 lakh crores. So obviously, government has increased 3 times in the last 4 years. On top of it, it's another 11% increase. Infra, as we all know, is the enabler. So real estate comes later. First, the roads have to be built, highways have to be built. And once those things are built, then the real estate comes into play. So infra is the enabler. And by increasing it by 11%, government is continuing to commit itself to huge infra spending.
Well, that's of course the government's focus has been over the last couple of years on building quality infrastructure across the country. And thank you, Siddharth, for talking to Doordarshan.
Moving on, the government's focus on cyber security and technology, and this budget also focuses on these aspects as well. To find out more on how the budget looks for the technology sector in particular, DD India spoke to Vineet Kumar of the Cyber Peace Foundation.
Vineet, let me ask you about how do you look at this huge amount of 1 lakh crore corpus fund being given for innovation in the tech sector, and how it will help the youths?
Sure. See, technology and innovation is the bedrock for development. And this massive corpus of 1 lakh crore, I think we are going in the right direction. It will definitely push startups, MSMEs, and different people across different groups, whether it is civil society, industry, private sector, academia, even defense. So it will give a major push to all of them to kind of constantly innovate and make them Atmanirbhar. So I see it as a very big kind of a push that has come from the government.
There has been instances, many a times we have seen about deep fakes that has concerned a lot of people across the globe. Such kind of fund, and what kind of push do you think that the government needs or has been doing in the last couple of years to ensure that such things are tackled and nipped at the bud?
Right. So, in fact, this government, again, I'd like to kind of highlight and compliment the government because, in fact, in the last budget also, they have allocated funding for research and development. So a lot is being done. A major push is being done already. There are organizations, Government of India agencies who are pushing a lot of innovations and research in this sector. So things are happening and a lot of activities are happening, whether it is empowering universities. I see empowerment happening with the university. The students who are there, especially, they are actually getting a push to roll out their startups. For example, there are a lot of problem areas, but then there are technology, I feel, is the solution where technology can help in countering those problem areas. So a student can come up with an innovative idea to kind of counter that tech-based abuse, and the fund is there, the massive fund is there to support.
Thank you so much for talking to Doordarshan. Yeah, this is Dibyendu Mandal from New Delhi with camera person Naveen for DD India.
India's Ministry of Civil Aviation today flagged off 8 new flight routes for the northern Indian city of Ayodhya in Uttar Pradesh. The new flight routes will connect Ayodhya with New Delhi, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Jaipur, Patna, Darbhanga, Mumbai and Bengaluru. The flight services were inaugurated by India's Minister of Civil Aviation, Jyotiraditya Scindia. Addressing the event, he said immense demand emanating from the recent consecration of Ram Temple in Ayodhya has increased the tourism potential of the town.
अयोध्या में जो एयरपोर्ट की लोकार्पण प्रधानमंत्री जी के करकमलों से हुआ है, जिसका आकार एक मंदिर के स्वरूप पे ही बना है, पूरे विश्व में जितने राम भक्त हैं, लाओस और कंबोडिया से लेकर फ्रांस, इंग्लैंड और न्यूयॉर्क के टाइम स्क्वायर तक, इन सभी लोगों की आस्था हमारे रामलल्ला की जन्मभूमि अयोध्या के साथ जुड़ी हुई है। और जो इतिहास प्रधानमंत्री जी ने रचा है, इन सभी करोड़ों 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 लोगों का सपने को अपना संकल्प बनाया
And Indian airline SpiceJet said the move will boost air connectivity and facilitate the arrival of pilgrims.
I think it's an incredible moment in our history where we are about to witness the birth of the predominant tourist destination in the world. It's going to be one of the top tourist destinations in the world. We've already seen the enthusiasm of people who want to go there. The very first day of our flights, the flights are completely full. And there's no doubt that Indians from all across the country and different parts of the world will want to visit Ayodhya. So SpiceJet is delighted to be a first mover in this exercise, and I'm sure that there will be many more flights in the times to come. SpiceJet will connect other cities to Ayodhya, as will other airlines, and the new airport that's been developed at Ayodhya will soon run out of capacity.
Another Indian airline, Akasa Air, has expanded its services to Gwalior, marking the 19th destination on its rapidly growing network. India's Civil Aviation Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia and Minister of State General V.K. Singh flagged off the inaugural flight. Akasa Air will operate direct weekly flights between Gwalior and Ahmedabad from the 5th of February. Priya Mehra, the Chief Legal, Regulatory and Strategic Relation Officer of Akasa Air, called it a proud day for the airline.
So this is the first step towards connecting Gwalior to Ahmedabad today. We start our flight today with effect from 1st February. We have a weekly flight. It's obviously our 19th destination. We continue to grow, feeling very proud with the moment that we are in today. We've flown more than 6 million passengers, and very soon we'll be adding another 20th destination for us at Akasa.
In some other news, the European Union leaders on Thursday reached a unanimous decision to provide war-torn Ukraine with an additional 50 billion euros in aid following weeks of opposition from Hungary. This agreement follows prolonged negotiations. In December last year, Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban had vetoed the aid package that has now been approved. And with that, it's a wrap on this edition of DD India News Hour. Let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. You can connect with us on Facebook, X and Instagram. You can also check out our website ddindia.co.in. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Ramesh Ramachandran. From all of us here in New Delhi, thanks for watching DD India News Hour.